Portrait of a Lady on Fire is a French film released in 2019, written and directed by Celine Sciamma. The film follows a painter named Marianne, who is commissioned to do the portrait of Eloise, a young reluctant bride-to-be. Marianne must paint her without her knowing. She observes her by day and paints her secretly at night. Friendship then develops into desire, which develops into an incredible story.
Retourne-toi.
The movie takes place in France in 1770 and is a loud voice for the unfair treatment of women in society during the 18th century. However, the film's greatest achievement is not just its message or the story, it's how it also uses the music and the setting to tell its story. It's common to talk about this movie's lack of music, but it's not the only element the director uses sparingly. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is a very intimate story that involves two people falling in love. It happens gradually, instead of it just being the typical love at first sight. And director Celine Sciamma and cinematographer Claire Maton wanted the audience to also feel involved in the story, not as if they were just watching the romantic story develop, but as if they were witnessing it firsthand. And they do it by using specific shots and limiting the number of characters within a frame to avoid overpopulating a scene and making it less personal. In terms of shots, Portrait of a Lady on Fire uses mostly 2 shots, or at most 3 shots. When characters are having a conversation, the movie only uses 2 shots as perfectly illustrated in the scene where Eloise's mother is talking to both women. She starts the conversation here with Marianne. Then when she addresses Eloise, Marianne slowly moves out of the frame just as Eloise enters it, keeping only 2 characters within the frame for the entirety of the scene, even though there are 3 people in the room. Once Eloise's mother leaves the castle for a trip, the 2 women develop a friendship with the maid, and the director allows 1 more character within the frame when the women are shown doing something, like here, or here. But here's the thing. It is only scenes without dialogue, and the moment dialogue is reintroduced,
Non. Il ne doit pas y avoir de fleurs.
we are back to having only 2 characters at a time within the frame. The movie is also very good at utilizing the single shots, like when the 3 women are playing cards or telling each other stories. The director always uses shot reverse shot to only have 1 character in the frame at a time. That allows the audience to focus on the reaction of the characters, and the facial expressions are important within the context of the scene. It allows the audience to get a sense of participation. As for group shots, the movie only uses them in 3 instances. In the beginning, when Marianne is traveling to the castle, in the middle of the movie when all the women gather around the fire, and at the end of the movie. In the beginning, the group shots are used as a contrast so we can feel the shift when Marianne goes in isolation in the castle. In the middle of the movie, that is exactly the moment the characters discover their love for each other. They are put in a group for the first time in the movie. They are surrounded by all these women and yet they only have eyes for each other, with one of them literally burning with desire and love for the other. At the end, the group shots are first used to ironically make Marianne look lonelier than when she was in a more intimate and isolated space with Eloise. Then they are used to illustrate the distance between the 2 characters, showing how far apart the 2 worlds are from each other. Portrait of a Lady on Fire purposely uses an isolated setting to allow itself to use as few characters as possible. The music is always played within the film, with no use of a specific score, and whenever the characters play the piano or sing a very ancient anthem, it means something for both the characters and the story overall. The director delays the use of music to almost a frustrating level so that whenever the audience hears the music, it stands out and its significance is easier to grasp.
It was part of the plan since the beginning to do a film without a score, which felt challenging because it's a love story and love stories always have scores. I mean, you're like Titanic, My Heart Will Go On, we know. And even our own love stories, they have their songs, they have their soundtrack. But it was really, really about the reconstitution. It was really, really about the period piece. I wanted to put the audience in the same position as the character. You know, art is not available, music is not available. They have to, you know, they can, maybe they will hear some music once a year. And I wanted, this frustration to be the same for the audience, because, you know, we're looking for equality here in this film. And so that they would share the experience of how art is powerful, music is consoling, as strong as the character would feel it. And, you know, that's one of the music in cinema is really, really powerful.
The same can be said about the use of background characters and extras. The reason this scene was the most talked about after the movie's premiere is because it contains both. It is the first time the characters are put in a group, and it is also the first time a musical number is used in the film. The director and the cinematographer decided that the camera should linger, almost as if reading the actress's thoughts and desires. So much of it came from Sciamma's careful staging with the actresses, going as far as dictating the number of footsteps each would take. She even revealed that the long takes of the two actresses were extremely choreographed down to the millimeter of the position of the faces in relation to one another. She also supplied a cinematographer with a detailed technical breakdown of each scenario, allowing a cinematographer to spend time visualizing the camera movement. When talking about a movie in the IndieWire Toolkit podcast, Celine Sciamma talked about wanting to passionately chronicle the rise of desire and to feel what it would be like to be in the presence of that desire as it turns into love. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is this scene, the first time Marianne meets Eloise. It is also the first time the audience meets this character. The lack of music contributes to the realism of the scene with mostly a POV shot from behind. Again, no music with just the sound of leaves as background noise. When Eloise starts running out of nowhere, our run is accompanied by a handheld camera as if we were running towards her, just as Marianne chases after her. Then when she stops and addresses Marianne,
Ça fait des années que je rêve de faire ça. Mourir. Courir.
the sound of water conveys the feeling of isolation, as if the audience was in an island with the two main characters. Seems like small details, but honestly, this is simply brilliant filmmaking. During an interview, cinematographer Claire Maton had this to say about their approach on how to shoot scenes in the movie. Filming the dialectic of the gazes, the force of attraction between the two women, was one of the subjects of my work. I had to try to be a camera that looks, that peers, and to always find the correct entering of the faces within the frame. Celine wanted to make this proximity palpable. We had to look at these faces and not to frame them, but to be with them. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is an incredible story that deals with intimacy by not only isolating the main characters from the rest of the world by putting them in an isolated setting, but also by inviting the audience along, using specific filmmaking techniques and tricks, which seems to be Celine Sciamma's favorite approach to filmmaking, as seen once again in her more recent film Petite Maman, a movie that adopts a similar approach and confirms that Sciamma just loves her movies to feel very intimate and personal, and that she clearly wants this approach to be her style and identity as a filmmaker.
It's a ride, you know. I'm always trying to craft movies as ride. It should be, and a ride, you know, is not about. It can be about tak 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 tak.
Normally, love stories rely mainly on conflicts to help the narrative flow. It is often love at first sight. It often involves an antagonistic force the audience can root against. It often contains a loud score and a memorable theme song. Portrait of a Lady on Fire refused to focus on the destination, but instead put emphasis on the journey. It's not about anyone else. It's not about anything else but the two main characters. And in the case of a story that feels as personal as this one, isolation should be represented visually, thematically, and musically. In the case of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, less is more. Thank you for watching.